I'm back in university now. I'm in final year of computer science, AI and computer science. My honors thesis is a project/business that I've always wanted to do. So that's very exciting. But what's more exciting I became a little bit of a digital nomad. So after spending some time in the States doing an internship, I was offered a consulting company. And so I ended up spending a lot of time in Panama and various US cities, and also traveled to other Central American countries. And I will talk about it later on. So, cool. So when I got the topic of the talk, which was life of a digital nomad, it was a bit of a challenge. And I also to just simply be talking to a screen, because I also felt like that might not be the most interesting. How unstable is it?
It's cutting off quite frequently.
You are on red, which means that your connection is pretty poor. Because when you look at the attendees, you can see how
Not a problem. 1 second, I will. Sorry, this is so many technical difficulties. It is. 1 second, I'm just going to mute myself real quick here. Okay. How is it now? Is it any? I think it's still on red. Yeah, I can. 1 second. Oh god, I think the whole thing just stopped. Oh god. Okay, much better. Okay, awesome, amazing. Sorry for all the technical difficulties. I'm so very sorry, but this is how life is right now, and this is Blackboard is on my internet. But as I was saying previously, I'll talk about what happened in last year a little bit later on. I was trying to come up with different ideas of how I could deliver this talk and talk about my life and share a little bit more. I didn't want to. Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to do it with slides because I didn't want to set pretentious. And I also didn't really want to just talk and just screen because I felt like I don't really have an end, like a summary or a main takeaway from my life. So I decided to do all my life, which is something that popped up on my YouTube suggestions a couple of days ago. And so I thought that would be the perfect format. So we still have probably about 15 minutes, and I'm going to pray a little bit that my devices don't all crash and give up on me. And I'm going to try and share my screen and a little draw my life about life as a digital nomad. Excellent. So, can everyone see my screen? I cannot see my screen. Oh God. But now I'm not able to see my screen. How do you do this? Do you know why Sidecar is not working? Sorry. Okay, 1 second, please. I'm trying to figure out what's happening again.
No worries, take your time.
Okay, can we see the screen? Chat. Perfect. Amazing. I'm going to try and do this as well. And we'll see how it goes. And I really hope that it all works out. So, life as a digital nomad. So perhaps it would be a little bit useful to talk about my background. So I graduated high school in sunny, that's meant to be a palm tree, in sunny Spain. I did A-levels, but one of my main interests was always languages. I learned Spanish, and I also learned German. And I felt that in the future, at least one of those two languages will be very useful for things I do, and if I travel or work remotely or do any of other things. I probably didn't understand it consciously, but it turned out to be quite useful anyway. So after living in Spain, I to go to a place or go to a place that would open more opportunities for me, and that would be a new culture and a new country and kind of a new everything. I just wanted a change in life. I'm originally from Lithuania. I've lived in Spain. And one of the most important things for me was that wherever I go to, it's easy to find a job. So in the UK, it's quite easy, and they're very friendly to students who are looking for work. And so I ended up going to, bear with me, this is the one drawing that I think I can get quite right. I think we're getting here. We're getting here. We're getting here. Scotland. And of course, I applied to several universities there. I applied to Glasgow, I applied to Edinburgh, and I applied to St Andrews. And Edinburgh ended up being the one university where I went. Unicorn is actually the national animal of Scotland, which is why I draw a unicorn. And it's one of the things that I Googled before this talk, so I can draw it a little bit better. So at university, as probably most of us, I studied computer science, and that's meant to be a little computer. And one of the, I guess, main things that I did at university a lot was go to hackathons. So I both went to hackathons and also participated in hackathons. I both participated in hackathons and also organized hackathons. One of the main things, highlight of my university life so far has been Edinburgh. I think the logo looked something like this. That's okay. And if you haven't participated in Edinburgh in the first year currently, I'm sorry, you will probably not get to see it this year just yet, but it's quite cool. It's the biggest 24-hour hackathon in Scotland, and each year about 200 participants come and build something. And so hackathons was actually one of the things that allowed me to meet a lot of different people and make a lot of different friends in different areas of the world. And so I traveled to hackathons, whether it would be in the UK or Europe or even in America. At one point, even in the Emirates, all those new connections, I guess, expanded by network, as I've mentioned before. And so whenever I would travel just by myself, not necessarily to hackathons or for business, I would always have people to meet up with. I would host them as well whenever they would visit Scotland and vice versa. But I'm getting carried away. So fast forward, and I think I'm going to be using this a lot as there isn't a lot of time. Fast forward 3 years at university, it's my third year, which is known to be one of the more difficult years, I guess. The penultimate year of my undergraduate degree. And in year, I was doing my university courses, still very involved with Edinburgh. Did student politics at some point with a campaign, USA is useless. And I was applying to a bunch of internships. And first I was very solely focused on software engineering, but then there was one internship that really caught my eye, and it was doing partnerships for GitHub. So for GitHub education, if you know the GitHub Student Developer Pack, there's over 100 things and products in the Student Developer Pack now, but that didn't used to be the case. So that internship was the one that I really wanted to get, something that was really because I really liked building things, something that I picked up through hackathons. I really liked working with people from different countries, which I picked up through, I guess, learning languages and just experience different cultures. And the tech element, which is my degree. And one of the coolest things about it was that it was in, was that the eraser? There we go. It was in, I have a drawing for this. Oh, I hope I can do this right. Something like that. If you've been there, you're going to training for this, but I think we can do quite quite accurately. Okay. Wait, I think. I don't know if that's water. Anyway, so that internship was in San Francisco. And 2 days before Christmas, I think, I got the lucky Zoom call to say, and I got accepted. So again, fast forward, the internship turned out to be quite blessed. I learned a lot. I got to work on really cool projects, such as Student Developer Pack, and also with some other GitHub education programs. And at the end of the summer, I got an offer to stay on the team as a consultant, meaning that I'm still basically a full-on GitHubber, as in I'm still working with everyone, working on the same things, except I can work anywhere I like, because I am an independent consultant contractor. So I was one day just sitting on my phone or on my computer, thinking, wow, now that I'm a contractor at GitHub, where should I go and work? Because I can work absolutely anywhere. My job is fully remote. There was also a brief time, well, not really a brief time, kind of a big decision that I made is that I don't want to go back to school. I don't want to go back to university, but I'm just going to brush over. Now I am back at university. That's a topic for a whole different time. But I was sitting one day on my computer, and I was admittedly on the F website, which is Facebook. I saw this post, and that post was by a person who ran a hacker house. We need a palm tree here as well. In Panama. And I thought, that's perfect. I speak Spanish. I should definitely move to Panama. I should quit school and move to Panama. So this was probably end of August, beginning of September 2019. When I hopped on a call with him the next day after seeing the ad and transit deposit. And so my life as a digital nomad began. I moved to Panama. I moved into that hacker house. That's still me, so I'm just going to leave myself there. And for the next 5 to 6 months, I guess, or 7 months even, what would best describe my life would be being a digital nomad. And so the I moved to Panama, I lived in Panama, which would be mid-September to mid-October last year, I was really enjoying it. I needed to go this basically jungle trail, which would take me a good half an hour at least, I would say, to go to the market to buy breakfast. And my breakfast would often be, well, besides like sweets, I guess, would be there's so many options in that. Would be I don't know, I want orange. Would be papayas. It looks like an avocado. I'm spending way too much time on this, but it was an amazing experience in the sense that I lived in this beautiful rainforest in a town called Boquete. And Boquete had about 30,000 inhabitants, I would say, but it was quite spread out. So I lived on a mountain in a hacker house with maybe 7 or 8 other remote workers. And during the day, I would work, and during the evening or morning, I would go to town or explore the jungle, etc. But after a month of spending time in Panama, I was a little bit bored, and to be honest, I was kind of lonely, and it's probably not what I expected, and it's not really what I see when I look at a lot of digital nomad photos, or look at the nomad hashtag on Instagram, or look at all the YouTube videos. Even I at some point made some, made some YouTube videos, which by the way are due for an update, that I'm really happy in Panama. But what people don't talk about is that every conversation that you have as a nomad, if you live in a remote location and you work remotely in places that are not really like tech hubs, or places where a lot of, I guess, just people work and stay, then a lot of your interactions are kind of when you first meet a person, because it would quite often be passersby, and uh, I got a little bit, I guess, tired of introductions. Of course, you can make friends. 1,000 people. There weren't that many young people, I would say, not in my town. So that was a trade-off. It was really, really beautiful, but there weren't a lot of things to do that would attract the 20s to 30s. I don't know why that person has that expression, but they should be smiling. I think the local people were extremely kind and extremely nice, and they had excellent knowledge of the pies. So after spending a month in Panama, I thought this is really this is not really not what I expected, and I booked a flight to I think it was Miami, some more palm trees. I spent some time in there. I spent some time in DC. Also, I traveled everywhere with my one really small backpack, and I would fit a jacket, 2 dresses, 2 pairs of trousers, leggings, about 3 t-shirts, and everything would be like black, so that washing would be really easy, because when you travel and you work also, you end up using laundromats a lot. And if you have any white clothing or any colored clothing, or just in general mixed colors, then it becomes a bit difficult and expensive. And also, if you go to a laundromat and wash a lot of clothes, I guess, then it's also inconvenient because it takes time, and you don't really have time because you're constantly moving. So what was I drawing here? I guess to illustrate that all I wore was black. But after that month in Panama, I spent some time in the US, maybe a couple of weeks, I want to say 2 weeks, maybe more than 2 weeks, about 3 weeks. I was trying to learn how to draw an eagle, so I could illustrate America, but I only got to about this part. Oh, that's not very right, is it? Yeah, yeah. That looks like a duck. Not even. So I'm just going to erase that. Spent some time in the States, and then as I was going back, I thought, okay, well, I do have my beautiful place in Panama, the Hacker House, but I should probably stop in other places. So instead of taking a flight back to Panama, I think it was from Washington, D.C., I think, yes. Instead of taking a flight there, I took a flight to Nicaragua. And then what followed was maybe 3 weeks, another 3 weeks of traveling in Nicaragua and Costa Rica. So there were more palm trees. Nicaragua is nothing like Panama. Costa Rica is not really either. I felt Panama was very, very like modern and advanced compared to the two. But both in Nicaragua and Costa Rica, and also Panama, you can do that, or at least I did that. One of the cool things to know about Central and South America is that there is a network of hostels that are aimed specifically at people who are traveling and working remotely. So they have both sleeping spaces but also co-working spaces. So you can pay a little bit, maybe like $5 extra, and you will have access to their working space and unlimited coffee. And it's called Selena. If you ever want to check it out, they have a network in South America, I think most countries, and also Central America, so Nicaragua, Costa Rica. Also, I think like Guatemala, definitely Panama. Not sure about Mexico, for example, but there might be some as well. But yeah, just a practical tip. So I stayed some time in Nicaragua working in the co-working space, then spent some time in Costa Rica, and then I returned to Panama. And by this point, it was probably November. And in November and December, I also stayed in Panama. And I think as the time was progressing, it was actually summer in Panama by that time because the seasons are reversed. But what summer means is that it's the dry season. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's brighter or warmer. But the summer came and I still kind of felt really lonely, to be honest. I felt like I could have been doing so much more and met made, I guess, so many more meaningful relationships if I was in a big city. And fast forward to, there were also in between like November and January, I also traveled again to America. Again, I disappeared for longer than I initially expected to. Because it's really convenient, right? I could just take my backpack and go everywhere. I managed to fit my whole life in a travel size case, like one of those, whatever the restrictions are for the cabin size suitcase, and a little backpack. And backpack, I'm not even sure I should attempt to draw. Oh, it's actually surprisingly accurate. I'm quite proud. No, I butchered it. Anyway, with my all black dress code and not having a lot of documents and not carrying any books and not having a lot of electronics, yeah, more time in the US, back in Panama. But then in January, something happened, and this is January 2020. And with work, I had to go to a conference. That was at the end of January, and I felt really lonely in Panama anyway. So when I heard about this, I was stoked. I was so happy that I will be going to what later became my newfound love. And I'm trying to draw this as best as I can. You can probably tell that some of the stuff I've practiced beforehand and some of it I have not. So this was one of the things that I did practice, but I think it's lacking. I don't think it's gonna all fit, but I'm gonna try really hard. So this work thing was an educational conference, and it was, see the thing, what I'm drawing right now, if you arrived in the UK more than, say, 5 years ago, sorry, less than 5 years ago, then I don't think you would have even seen it because it's all covered under scaffolding. I think we got it. Anyway, that's that. London. And at the beginning, when I arrived in London, this was at the end of January, I didn't think that I was going to stay that long. I found some Instagram stories recently that pop up in your memories that were of me saying things like, okay, cool, well, I've been in London for 2 weeks. I'm really wondering where I'm going to be next. And this was pre-corona time, so I actually did get to hang out with my friends. I made some new connections, and life was pretty good in London. And so when the whole lockdown situation began and when it was announced that from now on you cannot travel and you cannot go to Panama went on a really hard lockdown. Panama couldn't even you cannot enter or exit the country unless you're a resident, which technically I can do now, but I just didn't really have the desire. And I thought, if I'm going to be locked down, then I might as well be in a place that I like. I might not be able to see all the people that I want, but at least I'll be somewhat happy just walking around and seeing all the pretty buildings and just feeling like I am surrounded with people who are in the same space, in the same boat, and we kind of share the same values. So yeah, I would still say that I preserved my my digital nomad status from January till March, because it was still hopping around nations, temporary ones, essentially, because I thought that I would be going out. But I ended up staying, and I'm still here. But I don't know if there's any staff in this in this call. I'm in London, thinking about coming up to Edinburgh, but not right now. But I would say that besides all this life talking and talking about digital nomadicism, I don't know if that's a word. My main takeaways from living as a digital nomad for 7 months was that I'm really glad I did it now. In exotic locations and working remotely is something that I've always wanted to do. It's something that a lot of people look forward to for, in many cases, even years. People spend a lot of time building a career. I guess saving up money really to be able to do this, and it may not turn out to be what it seems like. And this was a common theme, I guess a common pattern amongst many digital nomads I met, especially in Nicaragua and also in Panama. It's lack of meaningful connections that's really confusing, because you just keep meeting new people, or you don't meet any people for a while. And if you're in a very remote location, you can't just decide to, sorry. Oh. Okay. You kind of just decide to like go out or for a walk in the middle of the night because you're in a you can't do that. Sometimes I figured out now that maybe it's not really my thing, and it's not something that I will be looking forward to for the next 10 years. That's cool. Another thing that I learned, something I already mentioned, it's lonely, even if on social media it doesn't seem that way. Something that's really difficult is logistics. It's things like, where do you pay taxes? Or where are you going to sleep next month? It's great if you have a base somewhere. For a while I did have a base, like I had one in Panama. But if you're moving from city to city or from country to country, you need to think about Airbnbs or hostels or hotels. If it's a hotel, it becomes a little bit expensive. If it's a hostel, if you want to stay in a hostel, you probably don't want to stay there for an entire month. So a lot of, the hostel in one location, I mean, if you're traveling to many, I think it's totally fine. I normally stay in hostels whenever I travel alone. All these little things, or medical insurance, if you need to go to the doctor, if you need to continue seeing the doctor, where do you do that? Do you move to one place and then stay there? That's a bit confusing. And as a result, because there's so much uncertainty, you do need to have some savings. Absolutely. I would not do this if I didn't have a job, or I didn't account for the travels. Just, quit school and move to Panama. It's not as easy. And what else did I have? Oh yeah, I guess I learned that London is awesome, and I really like civilization. Not that Panama wasn't civilized. Panama is actually very civilized. I can't even believe I used that word. It's modern is the word that I'm looking for. It's like any, I guess, Southern European country, very similar. So yeah, that was me. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, if I manage to do that. There we go.
Thank you so much, Elena. That was super interesting. It was great learning about all your experiences. I know like a lot of us probably are interested in doing something even remotely similar. That was super adventurous. But yeah, that's all the time we have. So if anyone has any questions, if you're fine staying a little bit longer, or if not, we can just head out. But if anyone that's listening has any questions, just pop it in the chat or unmute yourself. Maybe we can go into a bit of a Q&A session.
Yeah, thank you for those who stayed. Sorry about the differences. My top advice, okay, what would be your top advice for anyone beginning as a digital nomad? I think based on my takeaways, I would say start small, in the sense that it might not be what you're expecting. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting. Well, it was what I was expecting, but I just didn't expect to be so lonely, and I didn't expect to need people and interaction so much. So maybe starting with a month, working somewhere outside remotely, which is what most people in Panama did. Nobody, relocates their whole entire life to Panama unless you're basically retiring. That works. So yeah, to start with a month or two. What to avoid: not having a job. That's pretty significant because there's a lot of expenses. Where you're traveling on tourist visas, tax situation gets pretty weird if you're doing legit work visas. When I arrived in Panama, one of the first things that I did, because I loved it so much, my first month there, I was absolutely ecstatic. I went through the immigration process, so I obtained Panamanian residency through there. But really, well, it's been approved, but I haven't gone to Panama and like signed the papers yet, which I'm not really in the mood for that right now. Tax situation, yeah, it does get weird, but what you can do is, so because I am independent consultant, I have a company. So you invoice that company. And the legal entity can be anywhere. And then, that's something that you should find out, I guess, depending on your situation. To enter the US, as long as if you're on a B1, B2 visa, you can you can be in the States for, I think, 6 months of the year. But realistically, you should be there less than before. Were the people living in the hacker house much older than you? I think there might be. I'd say so. I would say, yeah, early 30s, late 20s. So I wouldn't say much. I would say that they all had jobs, if that says anything about their stage of life. They all had jobs that were pretty stable, or consultants, maybe working different things. But in the hacker house, that's the thing. People just kept coming and going because nobody really. It's not very common for people to drop everything that they're doing and relocate to Panama with all of their belongings, even if it's just a suitcase and a backpack. It's much more common to go there for a month and stay there and work and enjoy the views and then go back to wherever there's your friends and people, etc., and family. Yeah, so the ones who stayed in Boquete as a town, because it's a super beautiful town, I really recommend looking it up. It's absolutely gorgeous. There were a lot of there were a lot of people who would retire to Panama from America, from United States. They had really pretty houses and really, really big cars. Cars in the U.S. are huge, and also in supermarkets. There's so much American influence. But yeah. So while they were there, I had friends. It wasn't, completely lonely, and I mean, it could have been so much worse. I'm complaining, but I had a job, and that I was able to keep through, well, until I got back to university. It could have really been a lot worse. So Is that it?
I think so. Any last questions? I guess not. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. It was great hearing from you. I hope everyone who's here enjoyed all of our events today. If you had the chance to attend, if not, like I said, this session was recorded. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Chris, again for saying that. Yeah, thanks for pushing through the technical difficulties, Elena. We understand it's so difficult.
Thank you for the
Coordinate
attention.
all this stuff. No worries. We're glad it worked out in the end. Yeah, we're gonna stop recording.